Servus Freunde, my name is Jimmy Cage.
And I'm Dennis, the Bodymeister.
And today we are talking about the golden age of Malayalam cinema. A dark psychological thriller with K.P. Ganesh Kumar in the lead role.
Jimmy, everything okay?
Oh yes, everything will be okay. Everything will be okay. Servus Freunde, my name is Jimmy Cage.
And I'm Dennis, the Bodymeister.
And once a month we let all of our awesome patrons and YouTube members decide which movie we should review next.
The latest poll was all about Malayalam classics. The options were Chidambaram, Elipatayam, and the winner, Irakal.
If you want to vote on the next movies, please consider becoming a patron or YouTube member as well.
The newest poll is already up, and this time you can choose between three Hindi classics: Do Biga Zamin, Kagas Ke Phool, and Mughal-e-Azam.
Coincidentally, it was kind of perfect that Irakal won the poll, because in the last years October has been the month where we reviewed all kinds of different horror movies. This year we decided against a full Halloween special because we want to review just whatever looks interesting to us. But Irakal would have made a pretty interesting fit. It's a very disturbing movie, kind of a horror melodrama, a dark psychological film.
Irakal is a 1985 Malayalam language psychological thriller that was written and directed by K.G. George. It stars K.B. Ganesh Kumar, Tilakan, Sukumaran, Innocent, Ashokan, and Radha. It's our first movie by K.G. George, who's considered to be one of the directors who revolutionized Malayalam cinema in the 1970s and 80s, and who inspired and influenced many directors to come.
Dilesh Potan is certainly one of them. A few months ago we watched and reviewed his latest film Joji, which seems to have been heavily inspired by Irakal. Both are set in a rich household that's plagued with a dominating patriarchal father figure. And both share this antisocial, psychotic protagonist, Joji and Baby, both outsiders in their family as well as in society, who begin to murder people. In that regard, Irakal is also a bit similar to the latest Joker movie or Martin Scorsese's Taxi Driver.
I read that the character of Baby was kind of K.G. George's own version of the angry young man, a more realistic and psychologized one that shows people what the emergency in India created in the psyche of the youth. The anger against corruption, against lies and hypocrisy.
And that's pretty much exactly what K.G. George was known for, deep psychological character studies. Apparently, Irakal is considered to be the first dark movie in Malayalam cinema, though I honestly have a hard time to believe that. For example, we haven't seen Adu Gopalakrishnan's Red Trap yet, but it sure sounds rather dark as well.
We already established that the story is set in a rich household and that the father, played by Tilakan, has an iron grip on his family. He controls absolutely everything, and his sons, Sunny and Koshi, do follow in his footsteps. The one who breaks ranks is Baby. He flunks out of college after nearly killing another student. So he returns home to become a part of the family business, but that does not work either because he can't cope with all the lies and deceit and the excess, as he calls it at one point. And well, he takes matters in his own hands.
Irakal is a movie that has almost no likable character. The only exception maybe being the ailing grandfather and Baby's only friend Raghavan, played by Ashokan. But for a movie to work, it doesn't need likable characters. What it needs are interesting, fascinating characters. And Irakal has a great ensemble cast and a fascinating family dynamic.
A family dynamic in Shakespearean proportions, which would be another connection between this movie and Joji. But you're right, Irakal paints a dark and disturbing picture of a family that's all about power and greed. It's full of toxicity, constructed in a way that's best to exploit other people. People that aren't as privileged as the ones we see here.
It's a film about violence, physical, psychological and systematical. Workers are exploited, politicians and police are bought and used for one's own benefit, and there seems to be no moral compass whatsoever. Baby grew up in this family, in this loveless atmosphere. So when asked if he loves his family, he naturally answers no.
That's a great scene. Baby doesn't talk that much. He really only says a few sentences in the whole movie, but when he says something, it almost always has weight. So all the time there's this threatening air in the room of what will happen next. That's actually true for everybody in the family, but Baby is of course the critical factor here.
This air is actually what I love the most about the film. This dark and oppressive atmosphere. Like most other Malayalam movies of that time, the cinematography by Venu is mostly very basic or ordinary, which doesn't mean that there aren't some truly strong compositions in there, only that I wished it would have been a bit more artistic and expressionistic. I think the great and haunting score by M.B. Srinivasan is doing a lot of the heavy lifting.
Absolutely, yes. It's eerie and ominous, and it fits perfectly to the way Baby slowly spreads mischief.
I think the term horror melodrama fits rather well to Irakal. The movie has many familiar elements and story beats. The love interest who is getting married to someone else, the family dynamic between parents and siblings, stuff like that. But it's portrayed in such a sinister way, and with the music, and of course also the great and truly disturbing violent outbursts of our protagonist, either as nightmares, little daydreams, or for real. There's a strong horror genre or exploitation vibe to it as well.
Yeah, and there are a few outstanding scenes in this movie that stick out of the more ordinary production, like when Baby kills a servant in the barn, or when he's lurking in the woods behind a tree observing Nirmala.
The way many of the scenes with Baby are staged make him appear like an evil guardian who oversees things and acts whenever he sees fit. But again, he has daydreams and nightmares, so it's not like it doesn't have an effect on him.
He's such an interesting character, you're right, it probably has an effect on him, but I'm not sure what kind of effect. He doesn't even seem human sometimes. I think there are 2 instances where he cries briefly after he kills somebody, but it doesn't seem like an honest shedding of tears because he did something horrible. It comes across like he has to discharge the tears so that he can execute his further plans.
That's an interesting point.
And also how he acts with Nirmala. There's no real love there. It's always a little bit awkward when they meet. He wants to own her, no one else can have her, and he kills for that. At one point he also says that he likes to take or snatch things instead of getting them for free, which is also interesting.
In any case, it's a great performance by Ganesh Kumar in his very first role. He does a magnificent job in portraying this very troubled young man, this self-destructive and murderous outcast. And it's so memorable how this character becomes one with the red electric wire. Such a strong visual motif that pulls through the whole movie.
But there are also other characters that leave an impression. I think Sunny, the brother who drinks all day and somehow wants to get out of the family business, is quite interesting. He's played by Sukumaran, who also produced the movie.
I really like the grandfather. It's so moving how much he's neglected, and also really disturbing and frightening when you hear him wailing from his room. It's also great to see Ashokan in the role of Raghavan. I think I have only seen him in Adu Gopalakrishnan's Anantaram, which I really loved. Another great and different dark psychological drama from the golden age of Malayalam cinema.
Yes, now Irakal translates to victims, and I think the movie poses the question who's really a victim, who's really a perpetrator or predator, and also how much one is shaped by their surroundings and where personal responsibility starts and ends. But in this case it's not only about Baby's responsibility, it's about each and every one's responsibility, probably starting with his father and mother.
If I had to criticize something, it's that the movie feels a bit too long, but which is of course typical for the time and what audiences were expecting. It's also sometimes a bit too direct, I think. We are of course dependent on the subtitles and maybe the dialogues are better in the original language, but there are moments where things are addressed rather blatantly, and I don't think it's really necessary.
The subtitles were pretty miserable though, so I think that might be exclusively our problem. But I agree with the length. Things could have been a little bit more focused.
The screenplay could have been tighter to create more tension. For example, the sister Annie must have known that the death of one of their servants could not have been a suicide. Yet there's not much evolving or progressing from it until the very end.
Yeah, but in comparison these are rather minor issues. And speaking about Annie, I thought she was yet another very strong and interesting character.
True, and also a very controversial one for the time of the movie's release. And did you know that actress Srividya has more than 300 acting credits on the IMDb? But unfortunately already died at the age of just 53.
Didn't know that, but I wouldn't mind if you left the trivia drops for me. So what would we say in German about Irakal?
Irakal kann aufgrund seiner verstörenden Elemente und düsteren Gewaltausbrüche schon fast zum Horrorgenre gezählt werden. Die faszinierende Familiendynamik, der tolle Cast und der tiefe Einblick in die Psyche der Hauptfigur machen ihn in jedem Fall sehenswert. I give Irakal 7 out of 10. It's more like 7.4, but I don't do that.
For me, it's also 7 out of 10. It's more like 7.2, but I don't do that either. Did you know that the research about dreams, where 100 men and 100 women were examined and questioned, revealed that only 3.8% of the men's dreams and only 0.6% of the women's dreams included a murder?
I need to see my therapist. So, what are your thoughts about Irakal? Leave a comment and also tell us what other KG George movies we should watch. You can hit me up on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd and also on Patreon, simply at The Jimmy Cage.
And you can hit me up on Twitter at TheBuddyMeister.
And if you enjoyed this episode, please give us a thumbs up, share, subscribe, whatever you like. And make sure you hit that bell for all we have to tell.